Hey, I'm Dr. Fred DiDomenico. This is Dr. Are you going to introduce yourself?
I'm Dr. Douglas DeSiena, and we are
Resurrecting Our Freedom. And today we're all fired up because we're going to talk about something that's been bugging us.
Yes.
Bugging the whole frickin' world since about January. And that's this whole pandemic thing, because now that we're supposedly on the other side of election, but we're really immersed in that right now. Here, this is November 9th. So we already went through that. Now all of a sudden, man, all the secrets are coming out. What's all this research? God, it's not really what we thought, and all these things. And why the timing from now? So I'm not quite sure, but you stay up on the studies.
I do.
And, you have some pretty interesting things.
Before we even get to that, let's just talk about how Pfizer came out just, a few days ago that said they have a vaccine that's 90% effective. And that's like the stock went crazy. The economy kind of turned on that announcement. But here's a question for you, Fred, Dr. Fred. What is the survival rate of a person who gets infected with the COVID-19?
Well, let's say if we go back and it was 0.26 death rate,
okay.
But that was way overdiagnosed, right? Those stats aren't even true. But if it was 0.26, it'd be 99.74. Okay, and now
so we have
speculated.
We have a survival rate of 99.74.
Yeah,
and we have a vaccine that's 90% effective, and that's like huge news. So what I think the immune system has a greater success rate than the vaccine does.
Isn't that fascinating?
Isn't that great?
Well, now when you look at, because they don't even know, right? I mean, now they're talking about all these cases, but what they're really testing is herd immunity. Not only that, I mean, we can get into this RC-PCR, is it RC-PCR test?
PCR test.
Now has up to a 92% false positive. So basically everything's all screwed up. And it's been, when you look at 330 million people in America, and then you divide just the positive cases, then the death rate really is 0.0004. So that'd be a 99.996. There's higher math. I went fifth grade. Fifth grades are smart. 99.996. So let's see. So here's what happens. Because in 2019, flu vaccination already has SARS-CoV-2 in it. Because check this out, because you guys know this. So what do? They take all the viruses from last year, and then they put them conveniently into what's going to infect us. So now they have multiple coronaviruses, including SARS-CoV-2. So what happened? You got freaked out, you locked down, shut down your business, got stressed out, had a few more cocktails because alcoholism is through the roof. And if you didn't shoot yourself by now when you're watching this podcast, you made it through. 44% of Americans now are turning to God because that they didn't turn to him. So now you're getting more spirituality. Now you're making it. Now there's a massive election. Now you're wondering, what the heck's going on? And then after all that, you're going to inject it directly. Now what they're telling you to do is you have to get a flu shot. Then you're going to inject it directly into your, after all that, you're going to inject it directly in your bloodstream.
For something that's less effective than your own immune system. And let's go back to that death rate real quick, because I found it fascinating. In a couple studies that's been coming out, and I have on Medscape, and I put my glasses on so I look smart.
You have to look smart.
Do I look smarter now?
I think you do.
I do too. So this is fascinating as we say.
Yeah.
Right here. So I'm on Medscape. It's right there. And what do they say? They say Florida will investigate all COVID-19 deaths. Let me read this real quick.
What website is that?
This is on WebMD.
Okay. And the title is, so if we can all look
The
it up.
title is Florida will investigate all COVID-19 deaths. And check this out. They said this. They said the Florida Department of Health will investigate the state's 16,000 coronavirus deaths due to questions about the integrity of the data.
Isn't that amazing?
They're not even sure what. Now, by the way, people do die.
Yes.
And that's always sad, and it's always a tragedy.
Correct.
But what's inappropriate is to label deaths that are not accurate, because that sets an agenda and a policy in place. And what we have to realize, and what I struggle with, is these policies create lockdowns which are problematic for a lot of people, which increases the rate of suicide, alcoholism, opiate deaths.
And COVID sickness.
And COVID sickness. And to put it in perspective, by the way, I just had a suicide with one of my practice members last week, Saturday.
Oh, man.
So it was tragic, and he lost his job. And I saw him on occasion. And I heard just the other day through the family that he injected fentanyl and overdose. So I'm just telling you, these are real issues. And this isn't just about politics. This is about people's lives. And if you have inaccurate data, we make inaccurate policy decisions.
Right. Now, and here's the problem. I mean, this is no secret either. We'd had the Barrington studies of all the MDs that came together, right? And they showed that, and actually, okay, let's talk about a little bit about politics. So you're in the presidential debate. Trump's like, coronavirus is never going to go away. We have to learn to deal with it. And that's true, because the multiple strains of coronavirus have been around for decades. In fact, it's associated with the common flu. And so just so you know, the PCR test is not specific for SARS-CoV-2. Now, I just saw a thing, it was written by one of the head officers at Pfizer, and he was talking about how inaccurate that test is. By the way, that was a test that was developed by a doctor who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1980. Said specifically it's not designed to detect a specific virus or bacteria.
Right.
So if you have any remnants of any coronavirus, it could be dead genetic material, it could be a dead virus in your body, you will test positive, and it's any coronavirus. So if you've had a common cold and you have any leftover virus in your body, even though it's inactive, you will test positive on the COVID test.
Right. And another thing, just the vaccines in general. So this vaccine is going to be the same dose, the same vaccine for every human being. I want to ask you this question. What drugs do you know that we can give the same dose, the same drug to all of humanity without any
Regardless of
different
body weight.
Right. So that's one thing. Number two is another study. Can I quote another study?
Yes, please.
You put my glasses on so I can look super smart.
Yeah, you do.
So this one just came out on the date is November 4th. You see that for our viewing audience?
Yes, there you go.
November 4th.
This actually says November 5th.
No.
Oh, that one. Okay.
November 4th.
That's the update, November 5th.
So there it is for our fine handsome producer right there. This again was on Medscape. And all the hullabaloo that we lose this thing called an IgG antibody, which the assumption was after about 3 months we can become reinfected again. And so they're trying to portray an idea that there's no long-term immunity with this. So we have to continue to getting vaccines, because vaccine then becomes the only answer if we don't develop an immunity. So here you go. It came out November 4th. It says waning COVID-19 antibodies expected. No cause for alarm. So what this tells us is, yes, the IgG antibodies do go down. However, we have this thing called a T-cell immunity. So this T-cell immunity can actually occur not even if you're infected by COVID. If you had any coronavirus, you can now have immunity to COVID-19, if we even know what that is. And so there's a huge number of the population who do not have immunoglobulins in their blood that can be tested. And so we're going to be forcing these people to be injected with the vaccine. And then the reality is they actually have immunity to this virus.
Right.
Where
So
is that?
people with it's a Medscape.
Medscape again? Okay, cool.
People that don't test positive for antibodies doesn't mean they haven't been exposed.
Right.
Because what they're not looking for is the T cell response. So T lymphocytes, I believe, right? T lymphocytes, they're white blood cells, and they go out and they also kill infection. And that can be a primary means of our defense. But antibodies will not be created. So it could be you've been exposed, your body is strong, your immune system works, you fought the infection, you're fine, you may have been asymptomatic, probably asymptomatic, and that's why people, just because you don't test positive for antibodies doesn't mean that you haven't already made it through. Now, if you get re-exposed, you'll create the same response, is what they're saying.
Right. And they're saying that so what we're saying is this article that just came out is there's a huge population, again, of those of us who have herd immunity already.
Right.
And yet it's not shown up in the antibody test.
Right.
Right? So what's really scary, I don't know if you saw the latest with New York, but the governor there, Cuomo, is now saying that he's going to mandate possibly vaccinating the entire population. Mandating and can we ever show a vaccine that is without side effects? The answer is
No.
absolutely not.
It's not possible.
Forcing somebody to get a vaccine that already has immunity to this virus.
Well, and they want to do that in Massachusetts. They want to do that with kids in college. They want to do that with elementary school, right? And they
Right.
want to do mandatory flu vaccination,
Right.
I believe, in Massachusetts. And the governor in Virginia wants mandatory COVID vaccination. That was back in October. So here we are. I mean, that breaks constitutional rights.
But they're using the wrong metric. So they're using an antibody test to determine who is immune, when that article is saying that a vast majority, if not most people, this antibody wears off in 90 days. So by virtue of the antibody wearing off in 90 days, almost the entirety of the population is going to look like they're not immune to the virus, when in fact they are. And by the way, when you have that T memory cell, the reason it's called a T memory cell is because your body memorizes this immune reaction so that you have immunity for that particular distinct virus for life.
Right. So it's kind of like when you get your kid and you get kicked in the face with a soccer ball. You want to remember that, and you don't want to do that again.
Right.
So I'll duck next time. I remember when I started, I'll never forget this because trauma creates neural pathways, right? So I remember my first time in the ring kickboxing, you know, I was like 31 years old. Of course, I'm in there, and he's a way more experienced fighter. I don't even know how to throw a jab. You know, I'm drawing, boom, I got hit with an uppercut. I couldn't eat for 2 days. And I'm like trying to eat, and I'm Italian. Like, that's not good.
That's gonna work
it took
out.
me 3 hours to eat a sandwich. And I'm like, I don't care if I have to suck on this thing for an hour. I'm friggin' hungry, right? So,
Is it a meatball sandwich?
eggplant parm, man.
Oh,
You know.
yeah, of course.
So the bottom line is, after that, I didn't get hit with another uppercut for almost 2 years. I'd watch that shoulder drop, boom. And that's what T cell memory response is. Oh, we recognize you. No. You're not coming here, smack. Yeah, you're out, man. That's what T cell memory cells are like.
That's the best explanation, I think. All of my immunology classes.
That's it. All
That's
we
the
need
best
is a meta
explanation.
story. People learn by stories.
I love that.
Yeah, right.
But the reality is, far more people are walking around with an immune response that actually works. It's like God's designing the human body, and like he goes, okay, spleen, pancreas, T cells, maybe I'll put that in, maybe I won't, right? Like he didn't make a mistake. He didn't void having an immune system in this human condition that we have.
And he didn't have any viruses in his keyboard or computer when he was doing that either.
Right.
There was no viruses. That didn't happen. So, yeah. And that's the way it is. Now, here's the next cool thing is there is neuroimmunology.
Right.
So what's cool about chiropractic? Neuroimmunology, what's that mean? Your nervous system controls your immune system. Your spinal cord, brain and spinal cord, and nerves. Actually, this is a whole medical science. Is CNN talking about neuroimmunology and chiropractic?
No.
I haven't seen that. Is Fox News?
No.
No?
MSNBC?
Channel 4, ABC?
No.
CBS? NBC? Not doing that.
Here's an absolute basic fact. Who supports all major news networks? I don't care if they're liberal or conservative. What's the one industry?
Pharmaceutical companies.
Pharmaceutical companies. What's the one industry that does not like chiropractic?
Pharmaceutical companies.
Why would that be?
Because they don't make drugs when people get healed with an adjustment.
Right. So how cool is that we can actually help people get well without the adjunct of pharmaceuticals?
So what was the first question? How cool was that?
How cool is that?
So cool.
So cool.
You guys have to memorize that. So when we say, how cool is that? You automatically say,
So cool.
so cool. There you go.
We're
That's
gonna
what
get
this
t-shirts.
podcast is really about.
About being cool?
Yeah. about what do they call those? Conditioned responses.
Call and response.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
call and
Conditioned
response.
response. Yeah, call and response. Yeah.
So we really don't we want to give people a little bit of hope that the body is this amazing, self-healing, self-maintaining organism that has an intelligence far beyond the human mind. And this body can deal with most viruses. And now, again, we appreciate people who do have immunocompromise. There are elderly people who are susceptible. We're not telling them, we do not believe what Cuomo did, by the way, to take infected people and put them in nursing homes. We're telling people to be wise. We're not stupid. But for the most part, young and healthy people are not susceptible to this virus. That's clear. Science has shown that. So why in the world do we still have lockdowns?
Well, and why are schools shutting down? Because kids are not a means of transmission. They open up all the schools. Kids in Europe don't wear masks. I mean, it's the science already supports it. Kids are not a means of transmission. They don't even get sick. There are a handful, I think you can count on one hand, where children have died, but they were in stage 4 cancer and leukemia. They were highly sick. And then CDC came out a little while ago that only 6% of all the deaths that they labeled as COVID deaths, and you guys probably already know this, were COVID exclusive. So 94% had at least 2 comorbidities.
And what's a comorbidity?
Comorbidity is another disease. The most common is diabetes. Well, the most common are diabetes and heart disease. Right. And those two are related to obesity. So when people say, well, America's got the most cases because we're the most irresponsible. And they're absolutely right. We are the most irresponsible on diet, drugs, and lifestyle. We have an irresponsible lifestyle. We have GMO foods that aren't allowed in Europe, right? They actually have to label GMO foods. Now, the thing with genetically modified foods is, here's a funny thing that also is on mainstream media, that when they first started modifying seeds and plants, and they fed them to cows, on every study, 100% of those animals in the study died of cancer.
Right.
So the cancer rates are going through the roof, right?
Right.
So they're right. We are irresponsible, not with COVID, with our lifestyle. And this is why all you have to do is remember one thing. Healthy people don't get sick.
Right.
And it's not the appearance of health, because there's people that have died that they did this in Italy when they did autopsies, and they found comorbidities that were undiagnosed.
Right.
So it's not the appearance of health. It's the physiologic, emotional, and in my opinion, spiritual state of health that creates a healthy body. And then this is no worries.
So this flies in the face of, because we do have the highest, most technologically advanced medical system in the world. So if in fact something were to happen, like you need a lung transplant, I wouldn't want to be in no other place in this country.
Exactly.
However, when it comes to being well, we suck. And I've told my patients this: if medicine were so good, the current medical model were so good at keeping us healthy, then I would not have a business. I would not have a flourishing practice. But here's just a flat out stat. We are 57th in the world in terms of mortality. 57th.
Yeah, we've gone down a lot.
Way down. Here's a Duke
It
study.
used to be 37th, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're sinking. We are
Every
an
year it's getting
unhealthy we are an unhealthy population, and that is without question. Here's a really scary fact: if you're a baby born in this country, you are twice as likely to die than 11.
That was your baby imitation. If you were born in this country, is that like Elmer Fudd? Or what is that, dude? Are you pulling out your childhood memories of Bugs Bunny? If you were born in this country.
They don't make good. You know what? They don't make good cartoons anymore, do they?
Yeah, I know. Bugs Bunny on Saturday mornings.
was
Come
the
on.
best.
Speed Racer before I went to high school.
Come on,
Let's go.
Looney Tunes.
I know.
Anyway, twice as likely to die than the next healthiest country. So yeah, we suck at the ability to.
You mean the next sick country?
The next sick country.
Right,
So we're the
We're number
last.
one.
No,
Sickest.
we're the sickest.
I know.
So out
number one
of
sickest.
11 industrialized nations, in terms of infant mortality, we rate the lowest. So we have the greatest infant mortality than 10 other industrialized nations.
Now, here's the key about infant mortality. They use that statistic to determine the health of an overall country, right?
Correct.
They use infant mortality to determine the general health of the country, and we are the worst.
Right. And
So
who's
we suck, basically.
Number one is Japan, and here's the interesting: they have the lowest
Oh, we were
vaccination,
number one. Oh, the healthiest. You mean.
healthiest, yeah, the lowest infant mortality, healthiest for children. They have the lowest vaccine rate. United States at a vaccine rate of
It's got the highest.
It's got the highest vaccine rate. I think we're at 72 or 74.
88.
88,
We're at
and
88.
yet we're the lowest in terms of healthy children.
Isn't
So
that
isn't that fascinating that it's an
When do
inverse
they start
relationship?
vaccinating kids?
I don't
At
know.
what point in their life? What do you mean you don't know?
Oh, for this
Yeah,
country,
this
at
country.
birth.
At birth.
Yeah.
Now what are they doing? They're giving vaccinations to pregnant mothers now.
Right.
So here's the thing. Now here's how corporations work, because that is corporation.
Right.
Right? So we had another woman on there, and my sister works for Adobe. So here's the thing. Wow, we did great. 20% increase in sales this year. Man, that's great. Here you get your bonus. Yeah, we're flying here. Yeah, we do this. Yeah, do that. Oh, are you back from vacation? Yeah, now you have to do 25. So what do you do? Work, 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 work. And then, boom, we hit our goal, 25. Yeah, you go on this. Here's another $100,000. Yeah, you go on this. Yeah, you go on this. Everything is sewn up. And now we got to hit 30. So here's what happens. They run out of demographics. So now let's see, we're already vaccinating kids the minute they're born. We need to sell more drugs. What do we have to do? Let's get them before they're born. How do you think ADD started? Well, we already tapped out adults on antidepressants. We got 1 out of 4. That's 1 out of 4 women in America are on antidepressants, right? Dudes, I just think they're too dumb. They just bang their head against the wall like, I'm not depressed. I'll just take a nap, take a dump, eat some food, and I'll be fine. Yeah, right. Dudes aren't that smart. Okay, women, they actually process emotion, which I don't know if that's a benefit or not. However, so what do? They say, well, we already tapped out. We already got a bunch of kids, adults on antidepressants. So what do we got to do? How do we get kids on antidepressant? Oh, we got to create a DSM code. We got to create a code for something that's wrong. So let's see. Oh, you're a right brain kid. You're more artistic. What? You don't color within the lines. You have ADD. You have ADHD. Oh, you talk too much because you're just an extroverted kid. You're what's on the Myers-Briggs. You're an E, whatever you are, ENFJ, right? Oh, that E. Those E people. They're ADD, man. Oh, you're introverted. Oh, what's that? Oh my God, you sit to yourself. You're more creative. You don't think like everybody else. You see things in 3D. Oh, yeah, you need this drug.
Can I tell you my reasoning behind this whole medication thing for kids in ADD?
Sure.
I'll give you 758 million reasons. That's the profitability.
This is going to be a long podcast.
That's the profitability. That's the profitability of Ritalin and Concerta and Adderall, those methylphenidate drugs. They make $758 million, almost $750 million just on that one class of drugs alone, methylphenidates.
In America?
In this country. Can I just go down one more little path real quick?
Please.
Let's talk about medications. Remember that we gave baby aspirin to babies?
Right.
It was called baby aspirin. So do you know why we stopped giving baby aspirin to babies?
Heart attacks.
Rise syndrome.
Rise.
Remember that?
Yeah.
What's
So
that?
that's when babies basically, it causes brain damage to babies. They go into like seizures. So we had to stop giving that to children. So they had discovered another reason to give it to adults. Oh, we're going to give a baby aspirin to adults to prevent heart attacks.
Yeah.
So they started doing that for a while until they found out that so many more people were were bleeding out from the baby aspirin that saved them from the heart disease. So yes, they
They
had
had a heart attack, but they had a stroke, or they had gastric ulcers, or
Right.
they had ulcerative colitis.
Right, all the other side effects of the aspirin. So it's interesting to me that we came out with a class of drug, 81 milligrams of aspirin. We called it baby aspirin to give to babies. I remember tasting them, and they tasted really good. I remember chewing them when I was a baby. And then that, we couldn't give it to babies anymore because that can cause literally neurological issues. So then they contrived another reason to give that same baby aspirin to adults. So that is to your point of a repurposing of medication.
Interesting that you mentioned that they tasted good.
They did taste good. I still like eating them. There you go.
There you go.
This whole thing is coming in full circle right now. We get the.
It's just how we love.
We understand the whole thing. Yeah, my mom was an RN, man. I mean, you sneeze once, you'd squeeze a zit, she'd want to give you an antibiotic. So, that's like, no wonder we're chiropractors, right? Because I grew up in a medicine cabinet.
It's just awesome. I think to myself, my children grew up without any vaccines. They grew up never going on an antibiotic. And it's crazy to see that that's actually possible. And I have hundreds and hundreds of families who raise their children the same way.
Well, and the benefit is, and I haven't practiced in a little while. I coach chiropractic, most you know, but you see the kids that aren't vaccinated because you raise them that way, and they all come in and they can't believe how their kids are healthy and all their friends of their kids are sick.
Right.
And they have asthma, and they have this, and they have that, and there's unvaccinated, raised through chiropractic, and they don't get sick. And if they do get sick, bring them to get adjusted. Boom. I mean, Dalton was like that, right? You got adjusted.
First thing I
Sonia
think about.
gave you the first thing. Renee brought you home. Sonia gave you an adjustment, and that's the first thing he thinks about.
The womb. I was adjusted in the womb.
Yeah, well, right. He was actually a breech baby, and we turned him with Webster technique.
Nice.
Right on the table, man. My sister's like, whoa, and like her stomach was moving and stuff, and it's like, you got to take a poop, or is he really turning? I don't really know what's going on. No, I mean, basically right there, and she went and checked it, turned, delivered. I mean, you've probably turned a bunch of kids, right?
Plenty of kids.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah. Chiropractic's awesome. So, hey, what's the bottom line here? There's more and more stuff coming out all the time. The CDC has already determined that everything they said can basically be thrown out, that all the predictions weren't right, that they all their tracking and all the facts that they said are inaccurate. There was a guy, he was actually one of the chief officers of Pfizer for 16 years, basically said all the stats are wrong. Biden, I'm just going off the presidential debate. We need to lock down, and we need to stay locked down until coronavirus is under control. First of all, the virus isn't going to go away. Every time it mutates, it's already mutated down to a common cold right now. And then this guy comes out and says there is no substantiation, there is no increase in the death rates. The death rate is completely flattened, and that's why the people that have an agenda have to measure cases. Cases technically are sick people. But what they're doing, they're calling cases positive tests, which have up to a 92% false positive, isn't even specific for coronavirus. So no, it's flat, it's dead, it's gone. There is no substantiation. And anybody that claims that this is going to happen and we're going to go through this massive surge has another agenda.
To that point, there are, and I think we talked about it in a previous podcast, we do have an increased positivity rate for those testing positive for the COVID.
Right.
Of those tests, however, if you look at the number of people being tested, that far is a more vertical line than those people testing positive. So if you look at the amount of people being tested and the amount of people being tested positive for the COVID, there's actually a smaller percentage of those testing positive per people getting tested.
Right. Well, and then you're looking, people testing positive aren't sick people. Now, here's another whole thing that we can do on another podcast.
Okay.
And this is happening around the world. 5G is a frequency, it's an electromagnetic frequency that is put into your body that causes hypoxia. That means it reduces oxygen saturation. It is known that 5G exposure leads to cancer. It leads to a weakened immune system. And what it actually does is simplifying this, disables oxygen from binding to hemoglobin.
Mm-hmm.
And so areas where there's high 5G, because what's the symptom of COVID? Respiratory hypoxia. Mm-hmm. And so what you're seeing is the more that these young people are staring at the phone, the more you see these 5G towers. And so if they bring your attention on something else, it means your attention is not on something. If your attention is on this, your attention is not on something else. And this is going to be the greatest killer of our time, not a virus.
My analogy to that, and it's so true. I remember as a kid going to a store called Tom McCann's, and it was a shoe store. And you would stand on this machine, you would press a button, you would look down, and you literally you would see an X-ray of your feet. And we didn't think in those days X-rays were dangerous. We literally, I remember as a kid, stand up, just pressing the button, look at Mom, I can see my feet. So now we know that people wear lead shields, and we know there's all kinds of rads, and we measure the amount of radiation we get, and there's a cumulative amount of radiation that's safe, and so on and so forth. In my opinion, 5G is far more dangerous than that X
Oh,
radiation.
there's no question.
So we're going to come 50 years, 20 years, I don't know how long, just like
gonna be
now,
good.
we're going to come to realize how dangerous this radiation, we're just spewing out to people as if there's no consequences to the human condition.
Right. Now, talk about a childhood story. I remember growing up back east, they would have the Jeeps with the big tubes on them, and they would drive down your neighborhood blowing all this smoke, right? There were chemicals to kill mosquitoes.
Right.
And what do we do? I want to run through the smoke, because they would drive through the suburbs, and there's all this white smoke, and it was to kill insects. And our parents were like, "Oh, have fun running through all the chemicals, little Freddy." You know what I mean? We'd be like, "Ah, I can't see," because you're running through the smoke, right? You know, like, what knuckleheads. Like, now people go, "Oh my God, take a little Johnny, let's hide and let's barricade everything." No, man, that was easy. I mean, the fact that we didn't wear seatbelts, that was another deal. You know, but here we're running through the mosquito chemicals. Insecticide, yeah, there you go. When we were kids, like Dalton's, I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" That was the '60s, baby. Here we go.
So I think we have a lot of good stuff in upcoming podcasts. This one.
Yeah, you know, and the more twisted the world gets, the more we're gonna bring you people that not only will tell the truth, but will certainly bring you awareness of things you may not be aware of. And I think if you're watching this podcast, nothing that we really said may be news, but we try to put it together for you so you can see it in a new light. So
I love that.
So there you go. We got some great people lined up. They're going to be really fantastic. Please ring the bell, subscribe, follow the podcast. Please share these podcasts, because right now, hey, the world could take two very specific and opposite polar directions. And so what we want to do is continue with our free world, continue supporting our constitutional rights, continue to realize that we, the people, should be running the government, that the government doesn't have to run us, was never designed to run us. We were supposed to run the government, right? And the government works for us. So we need to take a stand. That's what this is about. And the more we get this stuff out, the more educated people are, the more purpose-driven they are, that we can create a great new world and hopefully what this country is intended to be.
Yeah, for me, man, these lockdowns are dangerous and they hurt people. And we have to keep people enlightened and giving information, because if you trust just the major networks for your source of information, that's a very skewed source of information. So as podcasts like these and many others, I think that it's going to be the new way for people to get information that's at least unbiased and can deliver some goods relative to the reality of what's going on in our environment.
There you go. All right, brother.
With that,
thank you.
Really quick, what about an invite for the viewers to be able to like comment on the videos and be able to, if you guys have, who do you guys want to see?
Yeah, tell us who you want to see. Hey, just write in the comments whoever you would like us to have on there, and then we'll do our best to get them.
Yeah, a connection that maybe one of the
Yeah, or
viewers
if you got a
has.
connection, man, yeah, help us out, please. How they do that? In the
regardless of
comment
opinion,
section?
Yeah, just leave it on the comment section, or email you guys at resurrectingourfreedom.
We don't have an email.
Gmail.
Dr. Fred, Dr. Fred 1, DRFRED 1, the number 1, Dr. Fred 1 at MSN.com.
actually, we do have he was right, that is our email.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Nice.
I want to check our email.
Yeah.
Anyway, this sign off.
Thanks. Peace. See you next time.